I married a man who never looked at me, not on our wedding day, not at dinner, not even when I stood crying in the same room. I signed a contract to save my brother's future, believing silence was the price I had to pay. Then one afternoon in Miami, under a sun he never shared with me, everything cracked. The man who ignored me for 6 months suddenly burned with jealousy when another man saw what he never did. And in that moment, I had to choose, stay invisible forever or finally choose myself. People think a forced marriage is loud, a scream, a slammed door, a runaway bride. Mine was quiet. Quiet like the click of a pen when I signed my name. Quiet like the way my new husband didn't look at me when we said our vows. Quiet like the echo of my bare feet on polished marble at 2 a.m, when the whole house was asleep and I was the only proof I existed. My name is Anna Reed. I was 22 when I became Mrs. Daniel Moore, though in Daniel's world, I might as well have been a piece of expensive furniture someone delivered by mistake, and no one had the heart to return. It started the day my father died. One day we were normal, the next we were drowning. Hospital bills, debt collectors, a mortgage that suddenly felt like a trap instead of a home. And my little brother Lucas, 19, brilliant, stubborn, had just gotten into medical school. He had that rare kind of hope that makes you believe a family can still rise again if one person makes it far enough. Anna, he told me the night we got the final notice, I can defer, I can work, I can figure it out. But I'd already heard the panic in the way he said, figure it out. I'd already watched him stare at his anatomy textbook like it was both a dream and a weapon. And that's when Daniel Moore's offer came in. Not from him directly, of course not. It came through a conference room on the 47th floor of Moore Dynamics, the kind of building in downtown Chicago that looks like it was designed to make you feel small on purpose. It came through a legal folder, a glass of water untouched, and a man who smiled without warmth. Victor Hale. He was Daniel's mentor, his senior partner, the shadow behind the throne. Victor's eyes moved over me the way someone inspects a new watch. Not cruel, just weighing. Miss Reed, he said, this is a simple arrangement. Mr. Moore requires stability. The board prefers a married CEO. The media prefers a story they can package. And what do I get? I asked, even though my voice sounded like it belonged to someone braver. Victor slid the folder toward me. Inside were numbers that made my stomach flip. Lucas's tuition, his housing, his fees, the debt my father left behind, erased like it never existed. In return, Victor said, you become Mrs. Moore. You attend public events when requested. You maintain discretion. You keep the private life private. It was written like a business merger. No mention of affection. No promise of kindness. Just terms. Then the door opened and Daniel walked in. 34. Tall, perfect suit. The kind of face you see on magazine covers beside words like power and visionary. His eyes skimmed the room, landed on Victor, landed on the folder, and passed right over me. Not with disgust, not with interest, with nothing. I have 10 minutes, he said. Is this done? That was the moment I understood what kind of marriage this would be. A life where my presence was tolerated, not wanted. I should have walked away, but then my phone vibrated in my purse. Lucas texting me a picture of his acceptance letter taped above his desk, like a flag planted on a mountain he hadn't climbed yet. I signed. I moved into Daniel's house a week later. It wasn't a home, it was a museum with security cameras. The hallways were too wide. The ceilings were too high. The furniture looked like it had never been sat on. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and money. On my first night, Daniel didn't even pretend. I work early, he said, standing in the doorway of what I assumed would be our bedroom. Separate rooms will be easier. He said it like he was negotiating delivery times. I nodded because my pride had already been sold, and I didn't have the energy to pretend otherwise. After that, time turned into routine. Breakfast alone at a table meant for 12. Lunch I barely touched. Dinner served at 8 on the dot, whether Daniel was home or not. Sometimes I'd hear his footsteps in the hallway, and my heart would lift on instinct, only for him to walk past my open door like it belonged to someone else. He wasn't actively cruel. He didn't insult me. He didn't hit me. He didn't humiliate me in public. He simply erased me. And being erased does something strange to you. It makes you start doubting your own reflection. It makes you apologize for breathing too loudly. It makes you feel guilty for wanting warmth when you agreed to live in the cold. The only person who spoke to me like I mattered was Maria Collins, the housekeeper who'd been with the Moores for decades. She was 62 and carried herself like someone who'd seen every version of rich people pretending they weren't lonely. One afternoon, she pulled open the heavy curtains in the living room, letting sunlight cut across the polished floor. "You need sun," she said simply. "This house is too dark." I gave her a weak smile. "It's not the house." Maria's hands paused on the fabric. Her gaze softened in a way that felt almost painful. "No," she agreed. "It's the man living in it." She didn't gossip. She didn't rant. But that day, she said one thing that stayed lodged in my chest like a warning. "Victor Hale taught Daniel that feelings are weakness," she murmured. "And Daniel's been trying to prove he isn't weak his whole life." That night, I did something reckless. I cooked. Not because I believed risotto could fix a marriage, but because I needed to know I could still try. I needed proof I wasn't already a ghost. Maria showed me how to make lemon risotto the way Daniel's mother used to. She said it was his favorite as a kid. I put on a green silk dress I'd never worn. I let my hair down. I set the table with plates meant for a couple, not a corporation. At 8, the food was steaming. At 9, it was warm. At 10, it was cold. My stomach hurt, but I refused to eat. It felt like if I ate alone, I'd be admitting this was all I deserved. Then finally, the front door opened. Daniel walked in with his tie loosened, phone pressed to his ear. "No, Victor," he was saying. "That clause is non-negotiable." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "Daniel?" He stopped, turned, and looked at me like I was a new email he didn't have time to answer. His gaze flicked to the table, the candles, the plates, the food. His expression hardened. "I'm busy, Anna," he said, lowering the phone just enough to make it sting. "We don't have guests. What is this?" "It's dinner," I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. "Maria said it used to be your favorite." The mention of Maria tightened his jaw. "I don't have time for this," he said. "We have an agreement. Don't turn it into a scene." Then he lifted his phone again and walked away, leaving the smell of ruined effort hanging in the air. I stood there for a moment, blinking hard, trying not to cry over something as stupid as risotto. But it wasn't about food. It was about the way my hope had walked up the stairs in his shadow and never came back down. When Maria returned, she didn't ask questions. She simply placed a warm hand on my shoulder and started clearing the plates, as if cleaning up disappointment was part of her job description. I watched the empty chair across from me and realized something with a calm that frightened me. If I stayed like this, I would disappear completely. And the worst part was that Lucas, sweet, hopeful Lucas, would never know what I traded for his future. Because every week on our video calls, I lied with a smile and told him I was happy. That same night, as I stared at the dark ceiling in my separate room, a thought formed with quiet clarity. I needed air. I needed light. I needed to remember what it felt like to be seen. And for the first time since signing that folder, I wondered what would happen if I stopped being obedient. Would Daniel even notice? Or would he only notice when someone else did? Would you say yes or no? If you were me, would you still protect Lucas's future, even if it meant losing yourself completely? The morning I asked Daniel for space, I didn't plan it like a rebellion. It slipped out of me the way truth sometimes does. Quiet, sudden, impossible to pull back. "I want to go to Miami," I said. He was seated at the glass breakfast table, tablet propped up, already half gone into reports and projections. The room smelled like coffee I didn't drink. He looked up slowly, as if I'd spoken in another language. "Miami," he repeated, not confused, just measuring. "A friend from college lives there," I added. "I need some time, just a few days." He studied my face longer than he had in 6 months. His gaze lingered on the shadows under my eyes, the way my shoulders curved inward like I was apologizing for existing. Victor had mentioned it the night before, I later learned. That Daniel's wife looked tired, that tired wives created problems. Bad optics. "All right," Daniel said finally. "Send the expenses to my assistant. Stay as long as you need." He said it the way someone approves a maintenance request. I nodded, thanked him out of habit, and walked away before I could change my mind. 3 days later, Miami felt like another planet. The air was warm and alive. Salt clung to my skin. Spanish and English tangled together in the streets. Laughter spilling out of cafes like music. Sophia hugged me so tightly at the airport I almost cried. "You look pale," she said immediately. "We're fixing that." The first day we did nothing but sit by the water, sip iced drinks, and talk about everything I hadn't said out loud in months. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt, startled by the sound of my own joy. On the second day, Sophia dragged me to a beachwear launch she was coordinating at a private club in South Beach. "You need a swimsuit," she said, "and I need moral support." I hesitated in the mirror, staring at the woman I barely recognized. The blue fabric hugged curves I'd forgotten were mine. My skin caught the sun instead of hiding from it. On the beach, something inside me loosened. I walked barefoot along the sand, felt the heat beneath my feet, felt present in my body for the first time since Chicago. I wasn't thinking about contracts or dinners or silence. I was just breathing. That's when Ryan approached me. He had a camera slung around his neck and a smile that felt easy, unthreatening. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "I'm with the creative team. The light is incredible on you. Would you mind if I took a few shots? Just internal references." I almost laughed. "I'm not a model." "You should be," he said gently. "You don't pose. You exist. That's rare." I laughed then, really laughed. And for a moment, the sound felt like rebellion. We talked about photography, about color, about how some sadness photographs beautifully without trying. He made me feel seen without touching me, admired without claiming me. I didn't know Daniel was in Miami. He didn't know his meeting had been canceled. What he knew was that his assistant called about a charge request for a beach club under his wife's name at the same hotel where he was staying. Curiosity wasn't what brought him to the beach. Control was. He saw me before I saw him. I felt it first. The shift in the air, the way laughter around me thinned. Then I turned and there he was, standing out of place in a dark suit under the sun, his expression unreadable, his eyes locked on Ryan. On the way, Ryan looked at me. On the way, I laughed. Something cracked in Daniel's gaze. He crossed the sand with purpose, reached me and grabbed my arm, not violently, but firmly enough to make a point. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked lowly. Heat rushed to my face, not from shame, from anger. I looked down at his hand on my skin, then back up at him. "Let go," I said. His grip tightened for half a second, surprised by my tone. I said, "Let go, Daniel." Ryan stepped back, uncomfortable. The music kept playing. The world kept spinning. "I'm not leaving with you," I continued. "I was living, something you never gave me space to do." For the first time, Daniel looked unsure. "You're my wife," he said like a warning. "And you've never acted like my husband," I replied. I pulled free and walked away, my heart pounding, my legs shaking, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Later that afternoon, as I sat under an umbrella trying to calm the adrenaline in my veins, a woman in white linen approached me. Her presence was quiet but commanding. "My name is Harper Stone," she said. "I own the brand hosting this event." She smiled knowingly. "I saw you earlier. Not the argument, the way you walked away from it." She told me she wasn't interested in perfection. She was interested in women who carried stories on their faces. "I'd like you to work with us," she said. "Not as a model, as a collaborator, with independence." The number she showed me was enough to cover Lucas's education for years, enough to buy me an exit. When I returned to Chicago, something had shifted. Daniel noticed my absence like a phantom limb. The house felt louder without me, and when I told him about Harper's offer, his reaction was immediate. "No," he said. "I'm not asking," I replied. The word landed between us like a challenge. That night, lying awake, I realized something terrifying and empowering all at once. I finally had a choice. And if choosing myself meant risking everything I'd sacrificed for Lucas, did that make me selfish or finally honest? If you were me, would you say yes or no to a future that could free you, even if it threatened the fragile peace you built to protect someone you love? The night Daniel told me he was coming to Paris, I didn't answer right away. He framed it as business, a merger dinner. Victor would be there. My presence, according to the original agreement, was required. The words sat heavy in my chest like a reminder of who I used to be. I agreed on one condition: 1 week. My work schedule respected. He said yes too quickly, like someone afraid the offer would disappear if he hesitated. Paris was gray and rainy, nothing like Miami's light. The city felt like neutral ground. No sun to hide behind, no mansion walls to disappear into. Just two people forced to sit with what they'd become. The dinner was tense. Victor's smile was sharp, his comments passive and precise. He praised my discretion the way one praises a well-trained assistant. I felt my hands tremble under the table, but Daniel noticed. For the first time, he noticed. Back at the hotel, something broke open. "You used me," I said quietly, folding clothes I didn't need to pack yet. "You brought me here to perform." Daniel didn't deny it. "I didn't know how else to do it," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. Control was all I knew. Victor taught me that love was leverage, weakness. I turned to face him, really face him. "And you erased me to prove you weren't weak." He nodded, eyes wet, voice unsteady. "I thought ignoring you would keep me safe. Then in Miami, I saw you alive. And I realized I'd been the one disappearing." We talked until dawn, not like CEO and wife, like two people finally telling the truth without armor. He apologized without excuses. I spoke about Lucas, about loneliness, about what it does to a person when they feel unseen. That night, something shifted. Not magically, not perfectly, but honestly. Weeks later, I stood in a hotel bathroom in Chicago, staring at a pregnancy test I wasn't ready to believe. Positive. Fear came first, not joy. Fear that this would become another cage, another obligation disguised as love. When I told Daniel, I braced myself for logic, for panic, for control. Instead, he knelt in front of me and cried, not quietly, not neatly. He pressed his hands to my stomach like it was something sacred and whispered, "We're going to be parents." It terrified me how much I wanted to believe him. The pregnancy changed everything, and it revealed everything. Victor didn't see a child. He saw a weakness. When a gossip article broke, detailing my past, the contract, Lucas's education, painting me as an opportunist who sold herself into wealth, I collapsed. Not for myself, but for my brother. Lucas called, broken, humiliated, angry. I thought I destroyed him. That night, Daniel didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate. He didn't calculate. He went to war. He exposed Victor's leaks, his manipulation, his crimes. He stood in front of the board and told the truth, not just about Victor, but about himself, about the mistake of treating a marriage like a transaction. Victor was removed, publicly, permanently. When Daniel came home, I was packing. "I can't stay," I said through tears. "I won't be the woman who ruins you." He took my hands gently. "You didn't ruin anything. You built what I was too afraid to face." He canceled the old contract that night, created a trust for Lucas with no conditions, no leverage. "This," he said, resting his hand over mine in my stomach, "is the only agreement that matters now." Our daughter Maya was born on a quiet morning filled with rain and breathless joy. When I held her, I understood something I hadn't before. Love isn't proven by possession. It's proven by presence. We sold the mansion, moved into a smaller house near a park. Maria moved with us, laughing that she finally lived somewhere sunlight didn't need permission to enter. I didn't give up my career. Daniel didn't ask me to. We learned, slowly, that partnership isn't about who leads, but who listens. That strength doesn't come from control, but from choosing again and again to stay open. Sometimes I think about the girl I was when I signed that contract, how quiet she was, how brave she had to be to survive. If I could speak to her now, I'd tell her this: you don't lose yourself by loving others. You lose yourself by forgetting you deserve to be loved too. As the story ends, I wonder what you're feeling right now. Do you believe people can truly change when love challenges them? Or do you think some wounds leave scars that never fade? If this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what part moved you the most. Let me know which country you're watching from. It means more than you think. And if you enjoy stories about healing, growth, and second chances, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need it tonight.